guys, welcome back to lesson number 4. I will put a disclaimer out that this is probably going to be one of the more difficult ones I've given you so far. So with that being said, I am going to give you lots of practice time before the final one is due. We're going to be creating the illusion of 3D on a flat surface. And we're going to do that by using shading. And we're going to be making some spheres today. I'm going to teach you all about how to create your value scale. I'm going to teach you how to curve your shading to make a flat circle look like a three-dimensional sphere. Hope you're ready. So let us get started. Spheres. You're going to be creating the illusion of 3D on a flat piece of paper. In order to do this, you need what is called a value scale. And value is basically just the lightness or darkness of a color. How dark can you make your pencil? How light can you make your pencil? All right, so we're going to be practicing that in a little bit to get you used to what your pencil and your hand is capable of. Once we have the value scale, we're going to make a circle, and I'm going to show you a neat little trick if you struggle with making circles on your paper. The important thing to remember when you're shading in a sphere is that you don't want to make straight lines. Straight lines are going to keep that circle looking flat as a pancake. All right, make sure when you do your shading and you start your shading of your sphere that you're curving it to make it look three-dimensional. And here's basically how the shading is done, including the shadow. In order to have a shadow, you have to have a light source. So you have to decide where the light is coming from. In the top left-hand corner, you see that the artist put a sun to show the light is coming from that top left-hand corner. And then you'll notice the numbers, if we go back to the value scale, the number 6 is the darkest, and the number 1 is the lightest, or where the light is hitting the most. So the top of our sphere in this picture is getting the most light. Therefore, it's going to get the lightest value of your pencil. And then it goes down. But you'll notice something right here. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but then look, it becomes a 1 again. The reason for that is because this particular sphere is sitting on a flat surface. So what happens is the light will bounce off the flat surface back up to the object before it makes the shadow. So that is why there's that reflected light off the flat surface. And then the shadow that's on the flat surface follows the numbers in the opposite order. The shadow is darkest, close to the object, and fades out lighter. You'll see this in the next picture. So there it is. That's a shaded in sphere. Obviously this picture, the light source is coming from a different direction. Then the highlight, where the light is hitting the most. The midtones is how the light fades into the shadow. It doesn't just make a stripe. You don't want it to look like a striped sphere. You want it to fade to the shadow. And that's where all your number 5s and number 6s are. And then we have that reflected light because it's on a flat surface. So you have your reflected light, and then the shadow begins and fades out this way. So let's begin. And we're going to begin with a very simple value scale. So down the side, I'm just going to make a box, and then I'm going to split that box in sections. Oh, I missed two. So I'm going to put one more there and one more there. Oh my goodness, my brain. So I have my value scale. So now, I don't know why this is blurry. There we go. So I have my value scale. So now what I want to do is I'm going to see how dark I can get my pencil. I want it to be the darkest. That's my number 6. Make your value scale small. You don't have to color in as much. It's just to see how dark you can get your pencil. There's my number 6. Right next to that, I'm going to go not as dark as that, but not too light, because that's going to be our number 5. Just like that. And I'm going to continue getting lighter and lighter as I go up. If you notice, I kept the top box just the plain color. The reason for that is because that's actually the lightest value you can get, is the color of the paper. So then you'll go down the value scale, getting a little bit darker, darker to the darkest. I like to start with the darkest one first, simply because then I can judge how all the other values will lighten up. All right, so let's get started on our sphere itself. If you've always struggled with a sphere, it's probably because you're using your wrist and not your shoulder. So if I were to draw this, I'm wondering if I can do it with my wrist. If I draw a circle with my wrist, they kind of come out kind of wonky. But your shoulder, the way your arm is attached into your shoulder, the joint that puts them together is already rounded. So if you kind of just put your hand on your shoulder and you just go around and make the motion and keep your wrist straight, you'll see a big difference in your circles. And I'm just going to go lightly using my shoulder. And it's not perfect, but it's not bad. So now I have to decide where the light is coming from. And for this purpose, I'm probably going to have the light source coming down this way. No, you do not need to put an arrow on yours, as long as I can see where the light is coming from. All right, so I know, because that is my light source, that this area here is going to be my number 1. That is going to be the lightest one, and we're going to fade it down. Notice I'm making it just like a light circle because we want to curve our shading. So then I'm going to go on to number 2. Then I'm going to get a little bit darker. And curve that shading. You don't want it to be straight. And down here, we're going to really start with the number 4s and the number 5s and 6s. And then remember, if it's going to be on a flat surface, I'm going to show you another neat trick too, if you don't want it sitting on a flat surface. But for this purpose, because of what I showed in the slideshow, I'm going to show you what to do with a flat surface. So here's my number 1 again. Leave it really light for the reflected light. And then I'm going to make an oval to show. Keep in mind your light source is here, so your shadow is not going to be on this side. You have to make sure that you do that. So then this is going to be 6, or the darkest. And it's going to fade the shadow out. And I will say that I have found a great alternative to a tortillan, and most of us have it right in our homes. So, Q-tips. Since I don't have tortillan at home, I have a Q-tip, and I'm going to use it just like I would the tortillan at school with the rolled up paper. And I'm going to blend all of these together to create that 3D illusion sphere. Then as I get closer to the light source, I'm not going to press as hard on my Q-tip because I don't want it to look like a stripe. I want it to fade, which is why I'm going around to the other side as well, just slightly. Take a step back and I will notice that I have some stripes here. I don't like when it has stripes. So in order to fix that, if you end up with some stripes, just go put some more pencil in there. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want to get rid of that stripe looking. And then I'm just going to blend a little bit more. And hopefully that'll do the trick. Curve. Don't do it straight. Not too bad. I could use a little more there, but I'm going to stop there for today. So you're going to be practicing some spheres today, but I want to show you one more way of doing it. Say you didn't want your sphere to be on a flat surface like this. Some of you might want the shadow to be there. You might want it to look like a bouncing ball. So you can make your circle. I'm not going to make you sit there through all my shading again, but I'm just going to show you the shading. Then, if it's not on a surface, then that darkest area is going to be there. All right, so I would finish the shading up. Then, the light source is here. See, I kept that the lightest part. So my shadow, to look like it's raised up, would be a little bit smaller, and the darkest part would be in the center, and it would fade out, and it kind of makes it look like it's bouncing. So the shadow doesn't always have to be on a flat surface to make it look like it's lifting up off the surface. So now I'm going to show you what you're going to do. You're going to have some time to practice this and practice lots of spheres and do what you can with them. And now I'm going to show you, once you've mastered how to shade them in, what you're going to be making with those spheres. Okay? So as you practice, you've now mastered the sphere. Yay! And you made a three-dimensional object onto a flat surface. So once you have that, what you're going to do is you're going to imagine what you could make using the sphere. I tried to find the least scary clown I could, but here's a good solution to it. You could make a clown, and the nose is your sphere. You could also do something cool and maybe do the eyes. It looks like they kind of did the eyes as well. So I did try and find the least scary clown, because there's a lot of scary ones out there. But so there's one idea you can do using your sphere, or how to draw your sphere. Here's a cutesy little one. They even look like they did his belly like a sphere and his head, but you could take your sphere and turn it into a balloon. Here's an all pencil drawing. It doesn't have to be in color. Mine is not in color. And they just made kind of like cereal, it looks like to me. Cereal with a spoon. Not sure what's going in the cup, but maybe it's bubbles coming out of the soda. I don't know. So you can kind of use your imagination on how you can use the spheres to create something cool. If you love doing lettering and you love sports, this is the perfect example of what you can do with it. All different size spheres. If you have a tracer or something to trace around your house to make perfect little circles, by all means you can use that, or you can use the little trick that I showed you about, I told you, I didn't show you, I told you about the shoulder. Here's another. You can take your sphere and then add to it almost like a still life drawing. Here's another, lots of little circles, and then you could draw what you want within it. Some billiards, if you like playing pool or know of how to draw the cue balls. Another good way of making the spheres. A pufferfish. Think of an animal. Think of an insect where you could change the shape of it a little bit to make them spheres. M&Ms. Never a bad choice. So you can kind of use your imagination and have fun with it. And here's a couple of more examples of sports. Well, one example of sports, and then the other one I thought was really cool idea. Say as you're practicing, you make this amazing sphere that you really, really liked, that came out so good. Well, you can take that sphere that you practiced with and just kind of add to it. Make something fun with it. And a couple more sports. So you're going to come up with your idea. And you're just going to have fun. Start with the practicing. I'm going to give you plenty of time to do the practicing on this before it's due. But I did want to show you mine, what I made. I ended up turning it into a bumblebee and a flower. And I did like the spheres. I don't know if you can see this. So here's the one that I made. And all I did was I did 3 little spheres for the bumblebee attached. And then I did the shading on them before I did all the detail. And then I thought, well, what a cool idea to put them on a flower, but I did a half of a sphere for the flower. So you're going to be able to come up with your ideas and see what you come up with. When I did the petals on the flower, I did all the shading, and then what I did is I went in and I drew with an eraser. So to get those little white lines that would have been impossible to keep with just using a Q-tip, what I did is I did all the shading, and then I took my eraser and I just kind of erased some white lines in there. All right. So whatever you want to come up with, try and use your imagination. Look around you at things that are around you that you might want to turn into a sphere. Okay, and I so look forward to your ideas because you guys have been coming up with some pretty cool ideas, I must say. I'm always impressed when I see your imaginations. So have fun with it. Practice. Make the value scale, practice the spheres, and then once you get the hang of doing the spheres, that's when you start thinking about what you're going to turn into those spheres and how you're going to make your design. Hope everyone's doing well and having a good day. I will be posting this in a few minutes, so enjoy, and I look forward to seeing what you make.